Hello future tech leaders, I am Sindhuja. Based on my own experience, I know that learning the right skills can shape our future. What if I say learning was as thrilled as the tech world itself? There we go. A CloudFoundation, that's exactly what you will experience. From day one, you will be immersed in the interactive sessions and expert-led courses that covers most of the widely used technologies in the zone of data science to cloud computing, which brings more light to the life of a techie. I'm so excited to help you and unlock the true potential of a technology. Well, then why to wait? Let's see what it unfolds.
Today, we will be looking at more of the structure of FHIR documentation. In that, we will be looking at what is the base structure. And in that base structure, what is the overview and key concepts of the home page. Also in specification, we will be looking at the definitions of resources and some interactions. And we will be looking at the implementation guide also. We will be looking at extensions and customization options. This we have already covered yesterday. That is, we have covered the homepage part yesterday. We have looked into the definition of resources. How the resources we can navigate through yesterday. And extensions method is not in the documentation. But extensions is quite put up in the resources only. Let's say we are using a medication resource. Now a new medicine has been formed with the whole new complex structure or something like that. How FHIR will be able to comply with that? Like how FHIR will be able to store the information for the newly formed medication request. That is totally dependent on the extension tag within the resource. Every detail which is new and not in the FHIR structure can be stored in the extension parameter. That is how good customizations we can do within a FHIR resource. Let's move on to our main topic. That is the key features of HI documentation. In this, basically we will be learning more about in detail of each FHIR resources. We will pick up 2 or 4 FHIR resources. We will go into the depth of it. We will understand what data type they are using, what cardinality is, and what cardinality they are consisting of. And some of the description I will show you what a field in a resource does. We will also look at some of the use cases and some real-world implementations. And at the end, we will have a short glimpse on the versioning, although we have a short glimpse on the versioning yesterday. That is how we will navigate between different versions of FHIR like R4, R5. But still, we will be looking at the versioning once again. If you can see, there are different levels in this page. Level 1, Level 2, Level 3, Level 4 and Level 5. You might be considering what these levels are basically. Let me tell you, Level 1 consists of basic framework on which specification is built. Like the data type, like the data structure, how the resources will be structured, in which format like JSON, XML. If you move a level up to Level 2, we have the supporting, implementation and binding. Basically, in this we store all the terminologies, how we are going to be secure, like the security, the consent from the user and how the REST APIs will work, the functioning of REST APIs. We will all be learning in the Level 2 stage. From Level 3, the main deal starts. Level 3 and Level 4 are the most important levels of FHIR. Because Level 3 and Level 4 consist of the resources. Getting my point? If we move a step up and go to the Level 3 resources, Level 3 resources are basically linking to the real-world concept in healthcare system. If you can read from here, that is linking to the real-world concept in healthcare system. That means these resources are the real-world resources. These are not hypothetical, these are not virtual. These are all real-world resources whose entity exists in the real world, such as patient. Patient exists in real world. Practitioner also exists in real world. Care team also exists in real world. All of these resources exist in real world. And then the level 4 resources are for record keeping and data exchange. For example, let's say you have allergy. These allergies will be stored. All of these allergies will be stored in the allergy resources. Allergy resource. That resource is only for the record keeping purpose and analysis purpose. Getting my point? For example, let's say you have some medication request. What all medication you are going to take and what all medications doctor has consulted you. For that a request has been triggered and that will be called a medication request. If you can see here medication request. Medicines are a real world entity, but medication request is not a real world entity. It's all a record keeping resource. If you can see all of the things will be on records only, that records will be used for analysis or let's say for executing order. Getting my point? Yes, all of the records. For example, let's say if you are dealing with clinical reports, all of the allergy you are having problem, you are having the procedures done for that. Everything will be stored in these resources and these resources later on will be used for record keeping. Yes, this person has these allergies and we have a record for this in our allergy resource. Getting my point? Any question or doubt around this, Sharak? Prashant, when we are using this level 3 patient, for example, in order to get the patient data at the end point of the URL, we will submit like a get function. Yes, we will be using the get operation. Let me share with you one thing real quick. This is how the real world of concepts work using API. Yes, definitely. Everything will be considered with the AP eyes only. If you can see my post transcribe. This is a get operation and I'm carrying a patient whose name is Kiddens. Getting my point? Basically, I'm getting the data from the server. And this data exists in the real world. This patient exists in the real world. This is a real world entity. But let's say, if I want to store some allergies for this patient, that data will be stored in the allergy resource. And allergy resource is being classified in the level 4 resource. That resource is level 4. Resources are classified for record keeping purpose that we can see each and every record for the real world entity. Getting my point? Suppose when the doctor prescribes a particular medicine, if it consists of this allergen particle, it will show up. This patient has this particular energy. No, we can develop a system like that. That system can be developed. But for now, what most of the doctors do is get like while treating a patient. Let's say if you are the patient, you went to a doctor. First of all, doctor will fetch your previous medication request allergy. All the details will be fetched on his computer and he will analyze the detail manually. He will look at all the things you have in your body now. That is the past medication history you have. What are the allergy information you have? Based on the previous data, he will prescribe the medicine. Based on the previous data, whatever he is doing, let's say if he is going to prescribe some medicine, he will first look at the medication resource. What all medications you are currently on. Because in the medication resources itself, they enter all the details, when the medication will start, when the medication will end. And if there is some already ongoing medication, he will be looking at that. Let's say you are consuming some blood pressure medicines from past 10 years. And the doctor has prescribed you basically to keep it on for a lifetime. It will also be mentioned there. While prescribing new medications, he will go through all the medications you are currently on, or the allergies you are having from that medication. When the staff enters the patient will need a shot for allergy or the problem procedure. These data will be stored in the fields which is visible in the user interface of the HIR. At the back end, it will be generated as the HL7 message. Yes, definitely. We will in the UI. Basically, we will be seeing a form. When we will enter the form data in the backend, all this form data will be converted to the HL7 FHIR resource. And then it will be stored into a FHIR server. Getting my point? There will be other team persons for generating this UI. No, have you heard about the software purchasing? Let's say if you are in a gym, let's say you are in a medical, you went to a medical to purchase some medicines. You quickly type some few letters in a software and generate your bill for that. Yes, there will be billing software for that. Yes, basically where that software came from. They purchased it from somewhere. Similarly, the doctor is not going to have a different team for UI, different team for the backend. He does not want to get involved in the tech series. He will go to a vendor, that is, let's say he went to Epic. He said that I will be using Epic. I will be storing all of my data within the Epic system. And I want to configure Epic for my hospital. What Epic will do? Epic will configure the provider with Epic systems. They will provide all the software, they will provide all the necessary VPN and things. They will handle all of this stuff. He basically works on the backend data. Interoperability. What basically our job is? Our job mainly depends on is, let's say there are some few systems which are already using version 2. And now doctor wants to fetch the data for that version 2 resource. That version 2 message. Let's say there is some device which is now currently working on HL7 V2. Let's say a blood pressure monitoring device working on version 2. Now doctor wants to know how basically the data will be treated. Let's say if a patient went to the blood pressure machine blood pressure laboratory in a different laboratory, not in the hospital premises. In the different laboratory, he went to do his checkup. That machine triggered HL7 message. How the doctor is going to get the details out of it? Here comes us. We are the interoperability engineer. We will be making the both of the systems interoperable, that data exchange can be seamless and efficient, and effortlessly they can exchange the data. What we will do, for example, the pathology department is there from where we get the results of this blood. This path department has sent the message in the format of a way to message, but this doctor is using the system with FHIR, which is FHIR compliant. There comes here, we need the interoperability. Yes, we will implement interoperability between both of the systems. And how we are going to do that? Basically, we can use Python. We can also use, there are some tools available, which is like Ming RT Connect, Pilot Fish, Cloverleaf. We can use that also, but we will require the knowledge of using those tools. Simply what we can do basically if we are working with Python. What we will do, we will put up an API in place. That API will be for listening purpose. Whenever H7 messages is triggered, that message will be sent as a raw text to that API. And when the text will arrive, we will be passing the text. We will be getting the details, information, all the validation we will perform on the text. Is the H7 message validated? Is it correct? Once that validation is performed, we figured out that we got the data. We will be mapping that data into the FHIR, similar to the script which I gave you H7 to FHIR. Instead of having a message just put up like that, what we will be doing, we will be setting our system from which we can receive H7 message and pass that message or perform all the validations and all and manipulated message into the FHIR resource. Suppose if both the facilities are using the version 2, there is no need for interoperability. Yes, there is no need for interoperability. But there is a need for maintainability. New versions are coming up. Let's say now, as you can see on my screen, let's say if a system is using R4, then R4 beta came in, then R5 also came in. New versions are coming in. And let's say if every year a new version is coming up that will require a version upgrade, a maintainability, some tech team will be required to understand all of the requirement and upgrade the version. It is better with like it. This job is basically always ongoing. There is no stoppage in this. If you're thinking about like this, like both of the systems are using R4, what is the need and everything is already set up. That is not the case. Let's say, if a system fails at some point of time, there will be tech team required to fix that. Let's say there is a version upgrade there. There will be tech team required to do the version upgrade. There is, let's say, some modifications. We are going to do some extension metrics we are going to add. There is always a tech team required for this purpose. It's not like that we have developed. Similarly, it is applicable to V2 also. In V2 also we have different versions. In V2 also we have different versions from 2.1 to 2.9. But after 2.9 it is deprecated. Yes, let's say if one of the system is using 2.8 and one of the system is using 2.7. We will not convert the message from 2.8 to 2.7. What we will be doing? We will upgrade the different system from 2.7 to 2.8. Because let's say from 2.8 to 2.81 is the sender and 2.71 is the receiver. In this scenario, we will be upgrading the receiver system to 2.8. Because let's say the data which was introduced in 2.8 newer version is not supported in 2.7. There will always be a mismatch in that field. Like that field will not be found in 2.7. We will do what we will do. We will upgrade that to 2.8. Getting my point? As we were discussing that, level 3 is basically the linking to real-world concept resources, and the level 4 resources are the record-keeping one. And then comes to the level 5. Level 5 are not that much useful in our daily life. They are just providing the ability to reason about the healthcare process. Such as say, let's learn definitions such as a library or major report. Let's say you are measuring your blood pressure, that it will be the major report. These are not that much useful of a resource. What now? You might be wondering what exactly we are going to do and what exactly you are going to focus. We are majorly going to focus on level 3 and level 4 resources only. We will be majorly dealing with these resources only in the level 1 and level 2 resources, level 2, level 1 and level 2. We will take them as a guidance factor. They are not resources. Level 1 and level 2, they are not resources. Level 1 is totally the documentation part. All the data types, the JSON type XML type X sector is defined here. Level 2 is the supporting implementation part in which we will be dealing with security. We will be dealing with consent. We will be dealing with version management. We will be dealing with the terminologies. The REST APIs document how we are going to use the subscription part. The main resources start from level 3. That is linking to the real world concept in healthcare system. And level 4 resources are the record keeping resources. Once again, let's say if you are a patient and there are some claims you are going to process. First thing will be the patient resource. Patient resources are real world entity that will come under level 3 resource. Then for the claims that those claims are totally record for record keeping purpose. Those will be followed under the claim resource, and that will fall under the level 4 category. Any confusion or doubt in this channel? Level 1 is basically it is about the syntax. Syntax we can say definitely yes. Number 2 is for implementation. Let's move on to the guidance for real-world implementation. Let's start with the patient resource because this is the most simplest one. Real-world implementation. What I mean by real-world implementation is basically the implementation of a real-world resource. Getting my point? Let's say patient is a real-world resource. How we are going to implement the patient resource? Can you see the structure below of this patient resource? Yes, I can see. The here is the name. There are some different fields defined in this table. That is the name. And then the flags, the card. Basically, it is the cardinality. This is the type. This will be the data type, and this is the description. I'm basically teaching you how we will be forming the patient resource. On the basis of that, we will try to form some other resources as well. Now coming to the point. This is the structure defined for the patient resource. When I gave you the script for HL7 V2 to FHIR, you might be seeing I am having a JSON source. In that I am storing all the details. You might be wondering where that JSON exactly came from. How did I form that JSON? Basically, that JSON is totally formed on the basis of this structure provided by FHIR. Let's say if there are two hospitals and each of them has to comply with FHIR. What they have to do? They have to follow this structure. They have to implement all of the details of their hospital. All of the software they have to update from their hospital to store the detail of a patient in this similar structure. Let's see if that is a JSON structure. Let's say that is XML structure. No, that's not a big deal. But the thing is, the structure should be different. It should be the same one. Within the structure, if you see, we have the identifier. And if you look at the description, it is basically an identifier of a patient. Both systems has to follow the same chronology. The same structures they have to follow. For example, if we add this new above of the identifier, does it work? And does it work? What exactly? For example, if we adding the name to the above active or else identify. Yes, definitely. The structure means the no, sorry. I did not mention that part. Basically, the structure means the key. This is. The key value should be same. The key should be named and the value should follow the data type format. No matter the sequence, how we are putting up the sequence. That is not our deal. We can put up name below before active. We can put up active before name. We can put telecom before name, etc. That is not an issue. Just the issue is the structure should be followed by a structure. What I mean, the key and value pair should be accurate. Let's see if this is name, everything is in small letters and you are putting up name and capital AME. That will not be acceptable. Everything should be in small letters. Not everything, whatever the structure is there. In this documentation, we need to follow with that structure. If there is a capital letter, we need to follow capital letter. Just we have for identify and patient. That's it. Everything is in small letters. Everything isn't small letters, but what I'm trying to convey is basically it should follow the structure from the case sensitiveness to the lowercase and uppercase. Everything should be followed according to the structure. The sequence can be different because, while you remember, when we were fetching data from the dictionary, we were using directly the keys. The key was important. The key and value was important. When we will fetch the data on the basis of a key, a value will be fetched to us. But let's say, if that key we are mismatching, there will be no value for that. JSON is also similar to the dictionary. In this, the major factor is the key. The key will be similar every time. The first thing in a structure is the identifier. Basically, it is the identifier for this patient. The ID part. If you look at Let me present the postman, you are able to see my postman screen. Identifier is basically this ID. This ID is auto-generated like a DB generated. It is not mentioned in the documentation. Because if ID is also mentioned in this documentation, everyone will try to put up ID for that resources or resource also. Let's say if you are able to see the name resource while forming the resource, you will define a field name and put some data into it. If you find the gender, you will put some data into it and send to the server. If you find ID field also, what do you will think? Man, I need to fill this ID field also and send it to the server. But that is not the case. The ID will be server generated. That is why ID is never defined in this resource. Getting my point? Yes, but ID will always be there. If you see this, ID will always be there. And then we have this meta tag. Meta tag is basically the metadata, the detail which we want to store. Let's say the detail which we want to store, the additional details, kind of when this resource was last updated, what is the profile of this resource? The additional information, we can see that all data will be stored into the metadata field. Getting my point? Let's say you are a patient and you modified your name, your patient resource. In the patient resource, you modified your name from Sharon to from C Eranan to CH Eranan. Modified your name. That detail. Where do we store that detail? That is that this field is modified on this date. These are all metadata part. And it totally depends on us that if you want to include the metadata in our response or not. If I don't want to include this meta tag in my response, it will totally be excluded, but it will be there in the database whenever I want. I can fetch the metadata. Getting my point? This metadata will also be not visible on this server, in this structure, because that is totally an add-on part. There are some add-on parts which are not in the structure of the resource, but we need to understand it basically, such as this meta tag, such as this text tag. Next tag is nothing but all of the details in text only. Getting my point? It is in readable format. Yes, it is in readable format. Let's say if I'm copying this text, this is an HTML form and the status is generated. This is a generated XM generated HTML. You know how to deal with HTML. Let's try to do one thing. I copied that data from here. Let's create a new HTML file. In this body, I will be passing this data. Once the data is pasted, I will open this with Chrome. If you see, this is the data. This is the generated data. I got it from this data. Cadence identifier system. All of these are heading. Identify value, address, date of birth. Let's say if a doctor wants to generate some text out of this data, where that value will be stored. Value will be stored in the text column. Sorry, text field. Now from here our main deal starts. That is the identifier. If you see in our documentation, we have the identifier part. And what is identifier? Basically an identifier for the patient. If you go back to the response once again, you can see what is identifier for the patient. This is the ID of a patient again. If you can match this idea and this idea, this is the identifier of a patient. Now identifier can be multiple. Because let's say one is your MRN number, your medical record number, and one is your local ID for the doctor's software. Let's say you visited a hospital. You're ready. Details are filled into the doctor's software. While fetching the detail from doctor's software, there will be ID generated locally for that system. Like ID. Patient ID. Yes, definitely. And one ID will be your global ID, that is your MRN or something. Yes. There will be, let's say, there are two identifiers for your patient resource. All of those identifiers will be stored in the identifier field. Now you might be wondering why we are storing how we are going to store our detail in the identifier field. How do you know we are going to store multiple identifiers within these fields? We can. Simple and short answer is basically by looking at the cardinality. If you do know what cardinality is, cardinality defines the occurrence of a field. If the cardinality is 0 to star, that means this resource, this field can exist 0 time or can exist infinite times. That is star 0 to star. Wherever you will see that the cardinality is 0 to star, you will store the data into the form of a list. This is a list of dictionaries. Because list is only the one which is capable of storing multiple information within itself. Able to understand the structure. How is this ID generated? Which one? This one? This, let's say, this is the usual one. This, let's say we are keeping this as a DB generator, or let's say the keep keep it as an SSN. SSN will be provided to you by the local government. And let's say this is the 9155 is your ID in the doctor software. Doctor software is capable of whenever, let's say when you are on the front desk with the receptionist or anyone creating your account. At that time, when the person will fill all the details of yours from on the front desk, when he will save the details, a new ID will be auto-generated. Whenever we are saving something in database, we are prompting the database to basically generate an ID on its own. And that ID will be against your profile. Whenever you are fetching your profile, that ID will also be fetched. Let's say if this is a local system software, they're including this ID in the identifiers as well. At the later stage, if, let's say, this data is with the doctor, he will quickly see that, yes, the secondary identifier means my local hospital ID. What he will do, you will directly go to the secondary identifier, grab the value and search for it real quick in his software. And let's say if he wants to send this data to another hospital. If a hospital he is sending the data to another hospital, and in that hospital if he is not including the usual, that is the SSN, and he is only including the secondary ID, will the other hospital be able to grab the details of this patient? Because this ID is for the local hospital, for the doctor's local computer. It is not a global. What he included in the identifier as well is the usual one. He's treating usual as the SNN. Let's say if he is sharing this data with another hospital as well, what another hospital will do? He will just grab the SN and grab all the details of the patient. That's it. Now the value is in which format? Is in JSON format. Which value? This one, system below this one. This is a JSON. This is key and this is value. Why don't we have the direct one? For suppose if we are including this SN, it consists of only integers. No, it is not only integer. If you can see, there is a UR in, is UR in an integer? No string. That is why it is stored in string. There are 4 data types defined for it. We will come to that point. Similarly, if you see the active, this is a type of Boolean. This is not string. This is a type of Boolean. That is why there are different data types defined for storing the data also. If you see the ID, it is not totally integers. It is a combination of character plus integer. If you see the system, it is also not totally integer. It is a combination of character plus integer. That is why all of these details are stored in the format of a string. Getting my point? No, there is a separate syntax for store. We will come back to that point. Now you are wondering, we are storing the identifier. As you can see in the gender, we are directly storing the male, female, other unknown here. Male, female, other unknown but present. Why are we storing the identifier in the form of a list? And in that list, also we are having a dictionary, that is the JSON with 3 key value pairs, that is use, system and value. Where do you get this data from? How do you know that we are going to store the key value pairs in this format only? And the name for the key value pairs will be usage system and value. These are all defined in the data type. If you open this data type against this identifier, this is the identifier and this is the breakdown of the identifier. If you see the cardinality, as I said you, what is the cardinality? If the cardinality is 0 to 1, can you explain me what 0 to 1 will mean here? Means it can be repeated. 0 to 1 means that it can exist either 0 time or either 1 time, not more than that. And if let's see if a field is existing 0 times, is that a required field? Let's take an example. You are visiting a function. You are given two options. Either you come, either you do not come. Are you the required person in the function? Because there is an option for you that either you come. That means if you do not come, then it will be 0 occurrence of yours. And either you visit the function. If you visit the function, there will be 1 occurrence of that function. That is similarly in this case. If you see the cardinality of use, then it is 0 to 1. If you see 0 to 1, that means it can exist 0 time or either it can exist 1 time, not more than that. If it is 0 to star, then we can consider it that either it can exist 0 time or either it can exist multiple times. If the cardinality is 0 to 3, can you explain me the cardinality of 0 to 3? Like it can be existed or else it can occur 3 times. Yes, definitely. Between 0 to 3 each, like any number of occurrence can have, but not more than 3. It can be between 0 to 3. Can you explain me the cardinality of 1 to 3? 1, 2, 3, it can exist 1 time between 1 to 3. Yes, exactly. Is 1, 2, 3 a required field? It is. Exactly, now you are getting the point. If we come back to the identifier part, we were here. Identifier part. You see the data type is identifier. Now you do not know what data type identifier is. What you will do, you will open this thing. When you open this thing, you got a new structure. You got a new structure out of it. That, yes, man. Now I'm getting the point that if you look in the identifier, in this identifier, this is a single identifier. You are getting use system and value out of it. Use system and value out of it. The use is basically the use of that identifier where it is used. For example, usual official use, temporary use, secondary use, etc. And one more thing is included. That is the system that the namespace or identifier value. And the value exact and the value itself. That is the value that is unique. Now you might be wondering at present, we used to use system and value, but why not? We use type and period assigner, etc. These are also present in the structure. But you see the requiredness of the fields 0 to 1. That means it is not required. If that is required, we would have used that. But in our terms, that is not required. And in our use case also, that is not required. We have not included it. Now you might be wondering, Prashant, if that is not required, can we remove the user out of the response and can we remove the value out of that response? Yes, definitely. If we do not want to include even the use, if you do not want to include even the value, that is totally fine. It totally depends on the hospital which fields they want to store the data. Let's say you are the hospital and you decided that I will not flood my resource with all the data not required data. And you decided that if these are all non-required field, I will just select few of them and store the data for it. Getting my point? Now you got it. How structure is formed. For example, when we are mapping the data from V2 to FHIR, if the hospital is saying to include only these types of values, we will include or else we will exclude the data. Yes, definitely. The structure will be provided to us beforehand. Similar to this, you're able to see if you see the FHIR patient, I already gave you the structure. That meant I don't want anything else. I just want this structure, this all data. What you did, you just put up all the ID the family given from this HL7 V2 message. That's it. And you discarded all of the other information. It totally depends on us how we want to store the data. Now coming back to the identifier, if you see the cardinality is 0 to star, that means it can exist either 0 time or it can exist either infinite times. It is mandatory. No, it is not mandatory. If you see the cardinality start from 0, that means it can either exist or not exist. In that case, what do you think? Is it mandatory or not? No, it is not mandatory again because it can exist 0 times. Getting my point? Hello. It can exist 0 times. It is not a mandatory one. Now you might be wondering, if that is not a mandatory one, how we are going to store the ID? As I said to you earlier, if you see in the response, we have an ID field. That is not in the structure, but it is always a mandatory one and it will always be included in the response. But how can we fetch the data without the patient identification? This is one of the identifier. This identifier, if you see in the documentation, this identifier is for the identifier of a patient where we can store the ID. Let me open this data type. This identifier is, let's say, for usual type, for official use, for temporary use, for secondary use, etc. Let's say you are Charan. Your identity is Charan worldwide. In your local community, you are being called a Ram. In your office, you are being called Bani. Your friends are calling you by your last name. Each of these identifiers, these are all your identifiers. We cannot neglect that. But the global version of your identifier is your full name Charan. That is this one. The global identifier is this one. this thing. But as you are always as you go into other communities, you are already given an identifier. Those identifiers will be included in this identifier field. Let's say in your local community they're calling you Charan. In your office they are calling you Charan. Your friends are calling you with your last name. All of those details will be stored here, just for record keeping purpose, that nothing can be missed later on. Getting my point? Similarly, this identifier is placed here that we can keep a record of the local system ID, that is this one, the doctor's local computer and the SSN. If there is some other idea of this patient apart from this, we can also store that idea as well, because it is a list of identifiers. And we can include as many as identifiers we want till infinity. Why we said this? Because we saw the cardinality that it can exist 0 to star times. Got the concept of it? Got. Now coming to the next field, that is the active. If you see the cardinality, can you tell me what is the cardinality of this active flag? 0. Can you explain me? It's not mandatory to exist in the data format which we are storing. Yes, either it may be 0 or 1 time. It can be excluded. Yes, definitely. And Boolean is true or false? Yes, definitely. The data type is Boolean. The cardinality is 0 to 1. Either it can exist or either it cannot exist. One more thing, if that is not existing, if this is 0 times, will I be storing the active field? Is that? If you see in this JSON which I provided you, there is no active field present, because I do not have the data for that. If I had the data, then only I will include the active field like this. I will put it true or false, whatever the data is. Getting my point? If a resource is like a patient, is active means he is dead or alive. The patient resource, basically not the patient dead or alive status, whether the patient record is in active use. He is regularly visiting the clinic. Maybe he is not regularly visiting, but a record of a patient. Some people, let's say if there are some druggists who are like drug abusers, they never visit this hospitals kind of stuff. They treat themselves on their own. Instead of keeping the record like this active, what a provider will do, they will keep the resource as an inactive resource. That means he, or let's say not a drug abuser, let's say you went to California. You were treated there once. Now you came back again to India. After many years, also your record is not a active, inactive state in any of the hospital in California, because now you are never going to visit California. What will they do? They will keep your record as an inactive state after a definite period of time. This is the active status. We have the cardinality 0 to 1 and the data type is Boolean. Coming back to the name. Can you tell me more about the name? Occur 0 times or else to the infinity. Definitely. And what is the data type of this? Data type a human. And what is human name data type? Can you tell me? As I said, if a string or boolean or integer anything is there, it will be included here only. If this is a human name, what do you need to do? First thing, click on the human name data type. It will take you to the human name data type structure. In this you will find string code, etc., etc. And always remember, if there is a data type code, the code value will be given in the description itself. These are the code values. You can use it from here only. If we go back to our name, you see this is the name. And this is a list of dictionaries. Why is it a list of dictionary? Can you tell me? Because a human name consists of a first name, middle name, last name. No, the name itself. I'm talking about the name. Why is it a list of dictionary? If I collapse this one, if you can see there is one name stored in my list. Why is it this one? And why? Why in gender we are not using a list? Why we are only using this in the name? In active, why we are not using a list? In the birth date, why we are not using a list? Can you tell me? Because of the cardinality. If you see active, we have only 0 to 1 occurrence. That means either it can exist one time or either it can exist 0 time. If it is existing only one time, is there a need to put it into a list? No, we can directly put the data. Let's say if active is of cardinality 0 to 2, will there be a need to put it up into a list? We can edit or else we can. Yes, but let's say the cardinality of active is 0 to 2, but we have only one active status. Will we be storing this into a list or directly storing it? I didn't know the concentration. Let's say, let me annotate it. We have a cardinality of 0 to 2 for this active flag here. In the JSON, when we are storing this active flag active, just think, if you are having the cardinality of 0 to 2 and we are having only one active status for this patient record, we'll be storing this. Will we be storing it directly? Like we are storing it now here, the active true, or will we be storing it into this format? That is the list. And in that we will have the true or false, whatever status it is. How? How we will be storing, because the cardinality is 0 to 2. Active status. This is just for an understanding purpose. I'm explaining. The cardinality is 0 to 2 for an active status. If, let's say, if active is only one occurrence with us, that is also acceptable. If active is only occurring one time, that is also acceptable, because we are saying, we are already defining it, that either it can exist 0 time or either it can exist 2 times, or let's say till 2 times to be correct, it can exist from 0 to 2. From 0 to 2, 1 also comes. It can also exist one time true. Let's say if you are having only one active status, but the cardinality is 0 to 2, how we can store the active status? Will we store this active status directly as a true, or will we use a list to store the true value? We will use a list. Exactly correct. We will use a list because we are not sure when we will get the second true value, second active status value. We will font the structure in that format, only that it is compliant on later stages as well. We do not have to change the structure again and again. Similarly, this name. Can you tell me the cardinality of this name? 0 to infinity. Let's say, if I'm having only one name, how can I store it? Should I store it in a list or should I store it directly? We can store it directly. There is no need of carding. No, you are wrong here, because you know what? The cardinality is 0 to start. For now, let's say you stored the name directly. That means you stored the name HRN directly and you have one. You went to another community. And in that community, your name is different. How you are going to store that name? Adding a list. Adding a list at that time. Instead of adding a list at that time, what we will do, even if you are having only a single name, but you are seeing that cardinality is multiple. That means, man, I can get even 5 names. Man, I can get even 6 names. Man, I can get even infinite number of names. I should make my system like that it should be compliant at later stages. I will think of future and implement it. Future said to me that it can exist multiple times, even if I'm getting only single name now. Future is telling me that it can exist multiple times. I can get many names. What I will do, I will put up a list out of it. If you see, this is the name and we are putting the data into a list. Is it like? Suppose the patient is having only called the patient name is Sedgwick and then the common name is like Sadie in the local name. They use Sadie as a local name and she has given the name for data entry in the EHR as Sadie in the local hospital. Here we need to add the list that the data will be compatible while interoperable. We need to add a list of names. Even if there is only one name given by this patient, this is only one dictionary. If you can see, this is only one dictionary, the opening bracket and the closing one. Here the patient has given only one name, but still we are using a list. In this identifiers, we were having 2 identifiers at that time. Also, we were using a list. Let's say new identifier comes in. Then we can directly add it to the list. Now let's say we have a name. We are storing this into a list. Even we are having only a single name, which this is the single name which I have highlighted here. This is the format of human name data type. Even if new name is provided by the patient, there will be no need to change our existing functionality. We can just add up new name into that. Getting my point? Let's move on to the human name data type. If you see the human name data type in human name, how we are going to construct the JSON. If you see, here we have text, family and given. If you see here again, we will select some of the few things here, that is text, family and given. Again, given's cardinality is 0 to star. Any confusion in this challenge? Are you getting confused? Are you able to understand what I'm trying to say? If there is any confusion, just ask it upfront. Do not worry about anything. Now you know. The cardinality, if it is 0 to 1, it totally depends on us if we want to keep the field or not. Let's say in this the use cardinality is 0 to 1. And if we see the response we do not have use. That is fine. We do not have use. We have a text. The text cardinality is also 0 to 1 and the data type is string. The text cardinality is 0 to 1. The data type is string. Will it be fine if I remove this text from this dictionary here? Yes, we can. Because the cardinality is between 0 to 1. That means it is not required one and I can totally remove it. Similarly, for the given, we have a cardinality of 0 to star and this is also a string. How we are going to store it? Will it be a list of string or will we be storing directly a string? It is. It will be in the list. Yes, exactly. This is how we will be storing a list of string. Getting my point? Now you understood how we are forming different data types. Similarly for gender can exist 0 to 1 time. And the data type is code. Can you tell me what code data type is? And where can I find the value of this code? Data type. We have to click on that one. Let's click on this one. Where did it take us? This is the code here. What do you find from this code here? Is in rec. As I said, keep in mind. Keep this point in mind. The code value data type is basically this code. You can find the value directly in the description. Let's remember data type is code. Let's go to human name. We have a code here. You can always find the value in description. Wherever you find the data type code for that, you can find the value in description. Let's move on to the identifier. Finding code somewhere here. The second one, use. The discourse value will be here. We can directly get this value and use it. That's it. Gender is code and the code value for gender given is male, female, other unknown. And code will always be a string. If you see in our response the gender, this is the data. Let me run this script real quick. The gender is for now. We are not passing the gender in natural 7b2 message here. That is why it is null. But let's move on to the postman. The gender, here it is the code value, which is in the form of string. That is the female. Where you got the female value from this code here? Similarly. Now both of it is of data type date. If you expand date, you will see the date time. The date time is stored in a y, m, n, t, d and then t minus hours, minutes, second plus time zone. This is one of the example. We can store the date time in. And this is also one of the example. We can store the date time in. This is also one of the example. We can store the date time in. For now, the birthday we are storing in is like this. Getting my point? Now let's move on to another one. There are instances where you will find the cardinality of 1 on 1. What is cardinality of 1 on 1 means? It is a mandate. It is a mandatory field and it can exist only single time. Not more than that. Can exist only one time. That means in short, all these are symbols here, flag symbols. Yes, we will come to that. Do not worry about it now. I will, that is a small concept. I will show you. For now, let's focus on this cardinality part. If you see the language that is 1 on 1, that means it is a mandatory field. But can you see, is it a parent field or a child field? This language, is it a parent field or a child field? As it is under a communication. Language is a child field. And the parent field for it is communication and communications. Cardinality is 0 to star. That means if the parent will exist, let's see if there is a communication field, then only language will exist and language will exist mandatory. But if communication is not existing, there is no point of storing all this information. This child resource will not be available. Getting my point? I am able to understand it what I am saying. Let's say if there is this type, which is underlink, can I store type if I am not having a link? Exactly. Because a link can be 0 to star. Without parent, how can a child? Exactly. The concept is without parent, how can a child exist? And if a parent's cardinality is 0 to star, that means if the parent, that means let's say if you're going to a function, your whole family is invited. If your and your parent is basically the non-mandatory field here, that means they can come or either they cannot come. It depends on their will. If they are going, you need to go. If they are not going, there is no point of view existing in that function. Yes, that is the case here. As it is a 0 to star, if they go definitely in, this child will also. Yes, definitely, this child will also go. They don't, this child will not go. If they don't go, this child will not exist. Got it. Now coming back to the flags. Flags are nothing but the information about the use of element, how we are using the element. If you see there is an N flag, that is, you might have seen here and you have seen here C. You will see more of the flags here. That means if you open up the N, you will see the different standard level of this flag. That is the normative, the trial use, the draft, the informative and deprecated one. By the color itself, you will be able to understand the normative is green here. And this is, I think, let's see which color is this. This is I think, deprecated one. The color. No, I think it is not. It is. Constraint, but what is it? Trial use or what? What is it exactly? I'm not sure what that color is. I'm not able to see that color properly. I'm confused between the trial and deprecated one or the color. Are you able to see which color is this? Is it this one? Then I think it is deprecated one. Basically, flags define the like for the resource there will be a flag, and for the fields also there will be some flags. For if let's say if for a resource a flag is obtained, that flag defines which type of resources it is. If that is a normative one, that means it is in continuous use. It is a normal use. If that is a trial use one, that means it is newly defined and it is in trial use now. If that is a draft one, that means it is not available to the local public. Now, only a few selected people are using that. If that is an informative one, that means it is just for an information purpose. If that is a deprecated one, that means it is deprecated. It is no longer in use. Getting my point? Now, these are for this flex. Now, you might be wondering about what are these flex? The question mark, exclamatory, and then the summation. There is no need for this submission flag to be a red. And I'm also not sure what this is. Basically, but there is a need for us to go with the question mark and exclamatory mark flag. Basically, this defines that this field is a modifiable one. That means at any point of time. Let's say if any point of time a patient is inactive. What we will do, we will modify this field from true to false. But let's say there is a change of name. There is a change of name. Let's say your name is Chiran Sirerarenin, and now you decided to keep it Sireranen. There is a change of name. Will the change of name be accommodated? How we are going to store the new name then? The answer is no. We can. There is no thing that we cannot do anything in FHIR. We can basically, you can see the name. Cardinality is 0 to star. That means it is a list of names. We can just add a new blame to that list, keeping the existing one. Getting my point? Why did not we modify the existing one? Because of the flags. The flag denotes that this is not non-modifiable field. But if we see the active status, we have a flag. That means it is a modifiable field. If you see birth rate, there is no modifiable field birth rate. Because of birth rate cannot change for a person. There is no field and there is no modifiable field for gender. But we can change them. This is on non-binary terms in the first place. Someone is identifying as a car. Someone is identifying as a cat. Someone is identifying as a non-binary. But at the end there are only two genders existing. That is a male and female. We are not in FHIR. This is all about healthcare. This is not based on a person's assumptions or a person's feelings. We are not dealing with feelings here. If we see there are only 4 genders identified. Male, female, other and unknown. Because a male consists of male reproductive system, female consists of female reproductive system, other consists of both of the reproduces, reproduction system, and they can also exist. And unknown is basically by birth. If someone is a not, like the doctor is not able to identify the gender. Within these three, they will be considered as an unknown one. Or let's say, if they do not want to disclose the gender, they can keep it as an unknown one. That is why the field is defined here, but in the medication terms, we are not dealing with feelings here. If we look closely in terms of biological factors, only 3 genders can exist. By birth, if you are having a male reproductive system, you will having a male reproductive system only. It will not change at any point of time. Getting my point? That is why gender is a non-modifiable field. But at the time of, let's say at the time of the registration process, you define that I will keep my gender as I wish. That is totally fine. Getting my point? They will not verify it like they will. They will verify your information, but they will require all the validations for that. Like if you are identifying if you are men, and if you're identifying as some other non-binary individual, they will require a certificate for the validation. Then only that information will be entered into your FHIR resource. If you are not having any validations for that, if you're not having any approvals or certifications for that, and you are just coming and saying that I will be identified as a non-binary from now, it will not be possible. Getting my point? Basically, FHIR is FHIR is developed by keeping in mind that every individual's request will be taken, but all the data will be validated first. If, let's say, a person is basically identified as a lesbian, if she is a lesbian also, she will have a female reproductive system. We will not store that data as a lesbian. We will store that data as a female. The gender will be female. Getting my point? It said basically that is a person's individuality, and we cannot change that individuality. But what we are going to store it, the orientation, the root orientation, basically. We were on the flex. Basically, let's say if a person is inactive from a past few years, we can definitely modify the activator active status or inactive status of that person. That is why we can see the flag of modifiable element here. Oh yes, and now I remember why do we use this summarized text. You remember we have a text generated here. Wherever this summary tag is present, the summation tag. Wherever we are asking for a summary to be generated for this resource, this data will be included into this text. Getting my point? You remember we created a table out of it. Like this is already a table only. If you see the div tag a table body, the body that is table row, table data, table data, table data, it means it is already a table. Wherever you will see this summary tag, that means whenever we are requesting a summary out of it, all these details will be stored into a text generated text, basically here. And we can view that in a tabular format anytime. This is not only limited to the HTML. We can store this text directly into a string, like the whole string. I might be having an example. Let me see if I have some. There also it is a do tag. That is fine. I think I do not have that now, but we can have this text basically in the format of a HTML also and in the format of directly string also. Instead of having this do text and all, we will directly be having the data here only. This is all totally dependent on the doctor, how he wants to get generated a summary out of it. Getting my point? Clear about this flag part, what this question mark and a symmetry mark does and what the summation part does. What is the cardinality? How can be modified? It is denoted in the question mark. Let's say we are, if you're talking about the deceased one. Deceased can be modified. If he's alive, that is alive. If he's dead. It can be modified. Similarly, and if we see there is no cardinality for a deceased boolean at date time. This is boolean and date time. These are mandatory ones. If, let's say, if this deceased is existing, then definitely we need to add, yes, definitely. We need to add these things. When is it disease? When he is like deceased, when he died. Yes, it is true. We need to include data. And you know what? FHIR is developed by considering all the future aspects. Have you seen someone getting alive after a few days of getting deceased? You have listened to that like someone came to life after a few days. By considering that part, they kept this deceased boolean. This is the case. Either or else they should have kept it as deceased true only. That is deceased one. FHIR is created by considering all the factors which we can think of in the medical terms, the healthcare terms basically. Coming back to the point, we got understanding of flex. We got the understanding of cardinality. We got the understanding of type. We got it. How we are going to form the structure. The key value pair. Basically, these are all the keys. If you see, these are all the keys. And let's go on to one of the JSON example. If you form the JSON example, these are all keys. This is key. This is key. And these are all values. Wherever the cardinality is 0 to start, we will include that value into a list. List of a list of whatever the data type it is. The name was human named data type. That will be a list of human name. Getting my point? Any confusion or doubt in this? I think we are good for now. Let's see if we are missing something in our orientation. We have the guidance for real-world implementation. We saw the use case. The versioning party already are aware of the versions. This is the release 5 we can see, and if you want to particularly work on a particular version, then we need to follow to that version. Like a R5. Is it a similar syntax we have or is only small seeing this? Similar syntax will be there. If you see, this is R4. We learned about R5 now. This is R. No, this is R4. You can see the URL for. What we learned now is for this one. That is why if you see the contact here, you can see CC flag. But if the similar thing, if I go to the R4 resource here, R4, the structure will be same, but the flags, they are removed. Getting my point? But the basic structure will all be same. That they do not change. They not 5 also. And R4 also use the active status that is having a cardinality of 0 to 1 and a flag of modifiable flag, the flag thing or changing. So only the flag thing. It got changed in R5 version. Yes, flags and some minor update are there in all new versions. Whatever the file community decides, but they put it up there. Any confusion or doubt in this? Jed? Then I think we are good for now. And let's see the versioning afterwards. Are we missing something? We have seen the level 3. Level 3 part, the resource basically go back again. Basically dealt with the level 3 resource, that is the real world resource. Patient exists in real world, but either he does not exist in real world. Like allergy also exists in real world, but that exists on a real world entity. Allergy cannot exist without a real world entity. Like if there is no patient, how eligible survive? But we need to know which allergy that patient is dealing from. That will all be in a record keeping process. Getting my point? We learned about this. Now this the resources and FHIR. We are already aware of these resources, but just to keep this in loop. Resources are small, logically discrete unit of exchange. They have defined behavior and meaning. They had known identity or location, and they are smallest unit of transaction. These are all the key points. You should also note this down and keep those in mind. By reading at this 4 of this bullet points for these resources, getting an understanding what resources are. Having any doubt? Let's move on the navigating FHIR resources. We already navigated to the FHIR resources. We saw the structure of resources. We saw what is metadata. What is metadata? Do you remember what is metadata? Is it the version of the FHIR which we are using? No, that is not the version. The method, let me show you the information which is optional. By optional, what I mean, additional. Such as last update date, your profiler URL. That means it is basically it is if your record is updated. Someone, somewhere will need that data. Not you, but somewhere, someone will need that data to work with that data. But that all data will be defined in the metadata field. Getting my point? We already discussed about the elements, the fields and their types. The data type is like the field is a birth date, that the type is a birth date. The field is active, the type is Boolean. And the relationships that is linked to other resources. A relationship is important one. If you open any resource here, you can see that this resource is referenced by. That means these are all the resources. This resource will be related to such as claim or such as device, etc., etc. This patient resource will be linked to all of these resources. Getting my point? This is the relationship of a resource, and these are the common resources. That is patient observation, condition, medical request, etc. The most common used ones. Any doubt in this? You're good in this. Any confusion or doubt till now? This is a FHIR resource example. We already saw this in the Postman itself. Insights on data types in FHIR. Basically, we learned about the data types in FHIR as well. The data type basically which we learned about is also divided into like some entities. Primitive data types comes under this normal data type, that is the Boolean, integer, string, decimal, float, etc. And there are some complex data type, that is coding, codable, concept, identifier, human name. These are some of the complex data type in FHIR. There are also some specialized data types, that is quantity, reference period, etc. We saw how we are storing the primitive data types. We saw how we are storing the complex data type. And the specialized data types are not used much. They are only used when they are when the resource for a specialized data type is used. For example, let's say this period. This period. Period data type will be like from which period to what period. If you're using a quantity data type, let's say Let's say there is a resource for storing your salt intake. Your salt intake will be stored into the quantity data type. How much quantity did you consume and all? Getting my point? Any confusion or doubt in this chart? We're good with the data type MG. MMG, you can say, or gram you can say. Even kilogram can be included in quantity. Quantity can be in liters, can be in milliliters, etc., etc. Is there any structure chart for this one? No, I think 1 second. We can check it out real quick and I will deal with quantity. This is the quantity. The value is decimal. We have code, you have unit, unit is string. Unit can be represented as a milliliter, liter, etc. That's it. There will be example as well, I guess. Is there an example? Yes, here it is. Like this, the structure example. Now, this is our typical FHIR. URL look like. Starting this FHIR URL, we will have HTTPS. That is the server address. The server protocol, which is Hypertext Transfer Protocol, secure. All FHIR APIs will be using HTTPS only. And from HTTPS to this FHIR, this is the base address. If you see this in Postman, also from HTTPS 3 to FHIR here, not only FHIR but to patient. Here, it doesn't like every REST API, I will define it. Will differ. Let's see if this is what equal this is for a clinical works. This is what a clinical works. A clinical works kept the URL in this format, but Epic kept the URL in a different format. It is totally dependent on the EHR we are dealing with. This is Epic. Let's take single patients. Epic kept the URL in this format, but the thing is still patient. Or let's say to any resource name here. There any resource name that will be considered as a base address. Here in Epic also, if you see, this is the base address. And in Sunner also. In DS or a clinical works. And a clinical works also from here to here. That means this thing, it will be base address. It will consist of base address plus the type of resource and the patient ID. This is how a typical file URL will consist, or basically a URL will be generated. And if you're not including the ID, we can directly use the query parameters. That is, we can carry with the help of name, or else we can carry with the help of ID also. Vary my point. Yes, pressure. The practical examples, we already saw the Postman. Now let's move on to the best practices. This will be the last slide for today, and the best practices is basically the cherry on the top. I always try to give some of the best practices to follow while dealing with the file documentation or something. Best practices for interpreting documentation is start with the Resource Overview tab. How you are going to start with the Resource Overview. Is the documentation changed or something? Strange. I'm not able to find the resource overview tab. I think it is changed or updated. That is fine. We can skip that resource overview tab. Always use example to understand context. As I said, as I displayed you this example here, that you can understand how data is being fed into the FHIR resources. Getting my point? How you can this is the example I am getting, but how you are going to get an example resource? You will just navigate to the resource. Here you will see examples. In this examples, download anyone. This is the general patient example. If you see the JSON, this is the example resource. Getting my point? If you're not able to generate something, some resources and all, always refer an example one. You will get an idea like how we are storing the data, how we are implementing it basically. And you can find the examples in the example type here itself once again. In the example tab, if you see the content, we have the structure here, and just after that we have the examples here. You have the examples. Getting my point? Sharan, you there? And at the last, always using data types. Basically, while mapping FHIR, map FHIR data type to your use case. Let's consider an example of birth rate. In birth rate, we have data type as date. In date, also, we can consider a multiple dates like on the year. We can consider year month. We can consider year month date with the timestamp. Will UTC with UTC. Always consider the best format for your resource. Always consider the best data type for your use case. And always validate data against the standard. There are some data validation points. As I said, always if you're putting data, don't put it blindly into the server. Always validate the authenticity of data. As you were discussing, while putting the gender, we cannot just put the gender as it is, as a person wants. We always need to validate the data. They always need to check the authority of the data. Getting my point? These are all the best practices we need to follow while dealing with or storing of FHIR resource data. These are some of the useful resources. If you want, there are some online validators as well. That is FHIR Validator, API testing tool. We have Postman, Swagger UI, etc. There are some communities as well, which is FHIR communities. If you are stuck at any point, you can just directly drop in message to the community. That community is very vast and very helpful as well. Let's see. In a few hours, you will at least get a response. And finally, do not forget to like, share and subscribe to our channel.